Hi. Welcome, Larry. Thank you so much for being here for Hope for Stuttering's Words of Wisdom series. So excited to hear your story and to have you share and have a conversation with you.
Look forward to it. Great to be
Okay,
here.
so wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and just read your bio so the listeners have an idea of who you are, and then you can share a bit more of your story, and then we'll talk. So, Larry Stein struggled with stuttering for 50 years, compromising his career and suffering terrible depressions. At age 55, in an effort to save the business of his dreams, he launched a drive to improve his speech that far exceeded his expectations. Over the next 2 years, he relearned to speak, retrained his brain, and worked through speaking situations that once paralyzed him. Finally, he was able to say his name at the age of 57. By becoming an effective communicator, Larry built his investment management business and has been interviewed in many of the nation's top financial media outlets. Today, he continues to run his investment management business, is the author of a book about his stuttering experiences, Free to Speak, a public speaker on self improvement, and mentors people who stutter all over the world at no charge. Though most people don't realize he ever stuttered, Larry knows that he still occasionally has minor disfluencies that in most cases only he can detect. There is no cure for stuttering. He and his wife have two adult children, both married with three grandchildren. Uh, though his early years were difficult, he has been fortunate to achieve his three goals in life: have a loving family, build his dream business, become an effective communicator who helps people who stutter all around the world. All right, what an
That,
intro.
wow. Is that really me?
That's you. At least that's what you told me. It's you.
Is that really me? Wow. Incredible.
Yes. Yeah, so if you want to add a bit more to your story, kind of where you began and what was your stuttering journey like and some of your speech therapy journey maybe early on and how you ended up in this place being able to finally say your name at age 57 and also how old are you now? Is that okay to ask?
I'm 93. I'm 67. 67. So it's been 10 years since I really began to feel really comfortable speaking, which is it's been the most incredible 10 years of my life. Actually,
Hmm.
the 2 years that I worked through it, you know, let me just say this. I avoided my stuttering all my life. I mean, don't look at me as a hero or anything like that because I was a I was a poster boy for what not to do, and I avoided stuttering. I compromised my career in that I always wanted to be in the investment business from the age of 11. I began investing at the age of 13. I was obsessed with it, and I was pretty severe stuttering, and I couldn't talk. And in those days in Chicago, it was where I live. It was pretty much sales, and so I gave that dream up, and I did things that I thought I could get by without having to talk much, like being an accountant. I had no interest in being. And then I was a financial writer for 15 years, investor relations, because I didn't think I have to talk much. But every time I was put into a position where I had to talk, at first it was very difficult, and I tried to get out of every speaking situation possible. But when I began to just get into the work world and have to talk as part of my day, my speech improved a lot. And by the time I was in my 40s, I was able to carry on small talk. I was still avoiding a lot. I couldn't say my name. I couldn't call people on the phone, but my speech was improving, and I was able to talk, on and off pretty well. I have my really bad days and my good days. If it was a difficult speaking situation, then I had difficulty. But so at age 54, I I had finally got in the investment field at age 47. Um, and which was way late for that. So for 25 years, I did things that I really didn't want to do. And especially the accounting thing. I hated my college. I hated my career. I hated my life. I went depression to depression. I was just a very unhappy person. Now I'm one of the happiest people that I know because I just do everything that I want. And I say anything I want. I do anything I want. And my business has grown. I'm actually in the process of selling it now. Um, but So what I'm saying is that those 2 years in which I really addressed my speech, because at age 55, 1 year into the business, I had the most wonderful year, but I hardly had any clients. I knew I had to do something to improve my speech because, you know, asking for $1 million is a very high pressure thing, and I couldn't get it out. And people are not, you know, people may think, well, all they have to do is listen to us and all that. But when you're talking people's money, $1 million or more, they don't care. You have to really, it's a game of trust. And I had to improve my speech. I didn't think I'd get to this point. I had no conception that I'd get to this, none at all. But I had to be able to speak on the phone. I had to be able to talk with people. So, anyways, what I'm saying is that those 2 years in which I worked through my speech were incredible, just incredible. And yes, it was hard. It was hard in the beginning, but once I made a little progress that I felt was real, I mean, real progress. I always had this belief that, oh, I had a good day speaking. Maybe I'm done with this. That's not real progress. Real progress, I relearned to speak. I literally taught myself to speak like a professional speaker. And I would mimic professional speakers. And once I made a little progress with that, then I began just to build on that. And then I realized the psychological stuff. I had to address that because I was avoiding everything. I was I was just avoiding every little thing about speaking. I was changing words. I was doing I just crazy stuff, and I just had to work through that. And that's a whole other. I'm going to let you ask that question because that'll be fun. And then even after I relearned to speak, even after I worked through psychological stuff, I felt, well, I realized I had to work through one speaking situation after another. And I fortunately went in a very slow way with very small steps. And and believe me, I knew nothing. I was just doing this on my own. Because I was doing it in rapid succession, one small success after another, building, and increasing challenge, let's put it that way. And at the top of my challenge list was to say my name. And just that alone was a 3 or 4 month project. I mean, that was a big project. But there's such joy in reaching those other levels. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. And um, the new thing in speech therapy or whatever is love your stutter, embrace it, be happy. Well, when you're stuttering very heavily like I was, I don't know how anyone could possibly be happy. I mean, it was brutal. It was brutal. Maybe if you have a light stutter, then I can see it. But what I went through was brutal. And there's no sugarcoating it. But even a severe stutter can be worked through. I had no idea that I would get to this point. I'm not a perfect speaker. If I'm traveling overseas, which I do sometimes, um, and I'm in a fast-moving market, people are talking other languages and all that, then I can have difficulty, even in a conversation in a large group where I'm trying to get in to speak. I can maybe have a momentary moment and I go, oh God, look at me, and I'll just kind of laugh about it. People don't notice it, um, but I am free, and and I wrote a book about it, and that's why I named the book "Free to Speak," because I after feeling a lifetime in which I felt I was in a prison of my own, and I now feel free to speak, free to say whatever I want, whomever I want, whenever I want, whatever situation. Ask away, my friend.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is a lot of good info. I have a lot of questions. I want more info. Um, I was going to ask you how you define freedom, because I think people can define it differently, but maybe you just did. Free to speak, free to say what you want, free to,
It's not necessarily being perfectly fluent. It's
yeah.
feeling free to speak, feeling that you're free to say whatever you want, whenever you want, whomever you want. Um,
Yeah. How much does
and
stuttering like occupy your thoughts and is actually in your mind? If like, is there a
now,
percentage? Yeah, now.
well, when I was growing up in my teens and my 20s,
Yeah,
I was consumed by it. I was dominated by stuttering. It was all the time. My mind was working. Now, nothing.
nothing.
Nothing. I
Okay.
mean, once in a great while, if I have to call someone I've never talked to, the moment it will hit, I go, oh, come on, you know, or, but in just regular, or if you know, I haven't introduced myself in a while, gee, can I still do this? Well, yeah, I can, you know. COVID was an interesting experience because with
Okay.
COVID, it took me out of the realm of being with people. And then when I
Yes.
got back into being with people, like there were moments where I was questioning. I would do public speaking, and
Yeah.
I get paid for it, and so it was like there was a little break in COVID where you could do public speaking and in live. There were some people who had masks on still, but um, and I remember I went up to Minneapolis. I had three-hour workshops I was doing. 3 hours
Mm.
I'm up there, and there's no one else. It's me, and I
Wow.
don't have any notes. I just talk,
Wow.
and I mean I have notes just in case I forget what I want to say. But um, and I remember driving to the first meeting. I'm going, and I still do this. I haven't given a talk in like a year and a half. I've barely been with anyone other than my wife in a year and a half. Can I still do this? And so I just harken back to, how I relearned to speak, and we can talk about that. But the main thing that I did psychologically, because I just didn't know what else to do,
Okay.
was I decided I was going to do the opposite of every thought I had. Every first inclination I have, I realized was so, because I stuttered for 50 years, most of that severe, that every first inclination I had was so dominated by stuttering that I just tried doing the opposite. If I avoid it, I would go to it. If I was shortening my sentences to the very minimum few words just to get out a thought, I decided I would lengthen them even to a ridiculous level. Every little thing I thought about, I decided I was going to do the opposite. And by doing that, I began to chip away at the psychological stuff. And years later, a speech therapist said, that's actually cognitive behavioral therapy, and that I was doing. And also years later, the therapist told me that, how I was talking about, approaching speaking situations from easiest to hardest, and in really small steps and taking one little step at a time. That, as you know, is exposure therapy. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know I was doing this. I was
Mm-hmm.
just in such desperation during that 2 year period because I had to build my business or we were going to go broke. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I had kids in private school um, and, you know, private universities. And I just had to do it.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Highly
that I could do it.
motivated.
I was highly motivated. In retrospect, I don't know that anything I did was that extraordinary because it,
Hmm.
because um, it seems like it's in some textbook somewhere. But
Hmm.
but but what I did do that, what people tell me is extraordinary, is I really worked hard at this, and I was tenacious. And I'm not a tenacious person. And I'm not a
Mm.
hardworking person. I changed. I grew. I grew into this person. What I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying is that everyone has that potential. Believe me, if I can muster that kind of motivation,
Mm-hmm.
and and I think it was just because I began to make a little progress, and much of that was from public speaking. I could go into that, but
Mm-hmm.
we have the capabilities, I feel,
Mm-hmm.
and I think what's separated, and this is what speech therapists told me afterwards. They said, "You were just so motivated." And that might be true. I don't know.
Mm.
I still don't understand stuttering at all. I don't know if anyone else does either.
Mm.
But what I did was I took a massive problem that I had no understanding of, that plagued me my whole life, and I
Mm-hmm.
brought it down to one phrase at a time. I just brought it down to that one phrase at a time. And I say one phrase, and so and I began speaking like a public speaker. And now I do some public speaking. But
Mm.
anyway,
So I would like to actually go back a little bit and talk about when you were a child and what type
mhm.
of speech therapy you did, and were your parents searching for help for you? When did you enter speech therapy for the first time?
Probably when I was 7 or 8, I don't know, something like that. Went to
Okay.
Northwestern University, which was the finest in the country. Hugo
Yeah.
Gregory.
Mm-hmm.
My speech only got worse through that.
Mm.
Um,
How long did that go on for? So you were
Maybe a couple
seven,
of years,
couple years, okay,
seven or
like
eight,
kind of
couple of
through
years
elementary school.
through elementary school. Yeah,
Okay.
and then
Junior high, high school, any therapy
and
or?
then I think freshman year and sophomore year in high school, uh, University of Chicago. That
Mm.
was with Israel Gold Diamonds Group, and but and again, no impact on me whatsoever. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but what I did learn from that, I learned a little bit
Yeah.
of it in at Northwestern, and then what I did learn at Chicago, which I never used in real life, but until I was like 50 years old. So this is more than 30 years later,
Yeah.
35 years later, and here I am in a public speaking situation, a 5 or 10 minute talk, and I'm nervous as can be because the last talk I had given was in my late 20s. I didn't want to give
Mm.
it, but as an accountant, just talking, you know, we had this learning session where everyone had to give like a 10-minute talk on some accounting topic, tax topic. And my little 10-minute talk took 28 minutes. So that
Mm.
gives you an idea how severe a stutter is.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty severe.
Significant. Yep.
That's pretty severe.
Okay.
That's who I was.
Mm.
That was hard. So those
Mm.
were hard years for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it. Um,
This was not a cakewalk. This was nothing I could embrace. This was hard. And
yeah.
I had a really hard time with it.
Yeah.
I fortunately was able to talk with my wife. probably why we got married. I was able to speak with her. And then we had kids, and I was able to speak with my kids.
Okay, wait, hold
But
on. Let's back up a
ah,
little bit. So
let's
you
back
were,
up.
so I'm just wondering,
You want my
so
childhood. I'm trying to
no, but
forget this.
even like I find it interesting, of course, as a speech therapist, like the speech therapy journey you were on and
Uh,
what kind of therapy you were doing. Did it keep changing? Were you doing all fluency stuff? Were you doing all stuttering modification? Were you wanting to be there? Did somebody put you in therapy and you just didn't want to be there at all? What was that like? So junior high and high school, college? What was
College, nothing.
happening? Did you ever take a break and just say, all right, I'm just going to go it on my own for now. I'm tired of this. This isn't helping me. Like, what
Uh,
happened?
After Chicago, so probably after I was 16 years old, I said, nothing's helping me. I'm just getting worse and worse and worse. And I just gave it.
And do you
No, it
remember
was
what
one
you
of the
even
biggest
did?
things. What's
Like,
that?
what were you exposed to at that point?
So at Northwestern, when I was, in elementary school, 8, 9, that kind of thing. Um,
You remember it? Because some
yeah,
people don't remember even.
I
Okay.
remember very well.
Ah.
Um, Voluntary stuttering, which is a great concept, great concept. But when you're a severe stutterer, it just, oh, just bounce on that word.
Yeah.
You're
For
right
you, it
into
was not. Yeah.
really heavy stutter.
Yeah.
Uh, to me, it was the craziest thing in the world.
Sure.
Intellectually, as an adult, it makes perfect sense. But as a kid with a severe stutter, I couldn't execute it. Um, they talked a little bit about phrasing, a little bit. Um, it was mostly, behavior modification, voluntary stuttering, that kind of stuff. Um, uh, a little bit with phrasing. And then University of Chicago is one thing. It's just one thing, and that was um, they they put me in a booth and my mom in the other booth, looking at each other through a glass thing, and we had delayed auditory feedback, headphones on, and we would read a story, and I was supposed to speak in phrases, and I could do that with the headphones on, but not outside of real life.
Yeah.
But again, when it when it when I was this volunteer president of this little tiny nonprofit in my 50s, and I was faced with a 5-minute talk, I somehow fell into phrasing. I was so nervous. I was just trying to, get through, a few words at a time. And I just fell into this phrasing thing. And
Interesting.
uh, after a year of that, and leading board meetings, which I'd never led more than a few people. By that age, I was able to lead meetings with a few people, but now I was leading the 15, 20, 25. And you would say, wow, he took on this post. What a hero. Not at all. I turned it down 3 different times. They just kept on asking me. Little small board. It was a bunch of old people. They had no one else. And, but because the answer out of my mouth for everything was no. No, 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 because it involved talking. Everything. I Now I realized I had to say yes to everything. So now I say yes to everything. And that was part of my improvement psychologically. I
Yeah.
decided I'm going to do the opposite. Rather than say no to everything, I'm going to say yes to everything. Anything you say, yes, I'll do it. Really?
So how did
Um,
you overcome? So that's like not until 54, 57, around there.
yeah.
So what like what helped you overcome the fear, right? And that old pattern of saying no and maybe potentially remembering old stuttering experiences or the I
Oh,
can't
yeah.
do this, right? And not wanting to re-experience that. Like you were motivated to save your business, your kids are in school, all of that. But Was that part of the motivation, or how did you face that fear and change the no to yes? That's a
You can
big
say that it's
shift.
all about money, really. I mean, it was desperation. I basically
Mm,
lived the life of, as Thoreau would say, quiet desperation. I mean,
mm,
one desperate thing to another.
okay.
And so here I was, 55, and I realized I have to build this business or that's going to go down the drain. And and no one was going to hire me. No one was going to hire me. I had very few clients. I couldn't talk on the phone. I couldn't call people. I couldn't say my name. I couldn't have a really, intense conversation with people. No one was going to hire me. And how do I know that? Because I tried. I even called friends in the business. No, they just no. I was out there on my own,
Mm,
and so I realized I was uh, heading out after a board meeting one night. A real snowy day, and I'm zipping up my coat, putting on my hood, gloves, and it hit me. Wow, I can speak better when I public speak than when I regular speak. Why don't I just public speak all the time? This is literally every single word that I was saying. When I speak publicly, I speak phrase to phrase to phrase. I'm going to speak, when I speak publicly, I speak in phrases. I'm just going to speak phrase to phrase to phrase. That's all I'm going to do. I made that decision. I'm throwing away how I talk, and this is how I'm going to talk the rest of my life. It was a 20-second moment. I decided that's what I'm doing.
wow.
That is
Wow.
what I'm doing. That's how desperate I was. I am doing this. I'm throwing away everything I know. I'm doing this. And I
Mm,
began to improve a little bit because
mm-hmm.
I was speaking in phrases. And then I added, these are longer stories, fun, but I'll just let them go for now. Then I added in, uh, I, I realized that these public speakers like Matt Lauer, they emphasize words at the end of each phrase. I never
Mm,
noticed it, but I'm now so keyed in on trying to improve my speech. And I'm watching these public speakers and they emphasize words for the end of their phrases, like I'm
mm,
doing now, and like I always do, really. Um, and so I began doing that. For them, it was to make their speech more compelling.
mm,
For me, I realized months later that it's getting the air out, that it's clearing the air out, and that I'm that I then have to take another breath. And then I got into this breathing thing. I was at, because very susceptible to anxiety, people who stutter, I blew out the blinking reflex in my eye. Just, it's called a blepharospasm. My eyes would blink uncontrollably,
mm.
horrible. This friend said, "Oh, you should go to my yoga instructor. Maybe he can help relax your eyes." I did all kinds of things with my speech, uh, you know, always desperate. So I was desperate with my eyes now, you know, and I got an appointment with him, and I'll just shorten that and
Mm.
say that he comes up to me, puts his ear against my chest, which was very uncomfortable, kind of weird, for about 30 seconds, maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes. I don't know. It seemed like a year. And he pulls away and he goes, "You don't breathe right." I go, and I'm going in, what does that have to do with my eyes? "You don't breathe right." I said, "Why?" He said, "You're taking these little half breaths. You need to
Mm.
clear out your breath and you need to take a full breath." And I handed him $100 check
Mm.
and I walked away. I go, just wasted another bunch of money on another therapy that's never going to work for me. And I had this long walk to my car through this big parking lot. By the time I got to my car, I realized maybe I don't breathe right. Maybe I need to change how I breathe. So I'm watching these public speakers and I'm saying, oh, I'm going to take a breath like when I'm singing. I'm going to take a breath before I sing. So I'm going to take a breath before I speak. I'm going to speak on the exhale and I'm going to clear out my breath because I'm emphasizing words at the end of the phrase. And I'm going to speak phrase to phrase to phrase, breath to breath to breath. And and that's how I relearned to speak, which was nice, except we all know, and don't take this the wrong way, but
Uh-oh.
because every speech therapist does,
That's
that
never a good thing to say right before. Now I'm ready, okay?
I'm just telling you,
Don't worry. You can say whatever you want.
and I will, uh,
And you
that
can.
that at that point it was just a technique.
Okay.
I I would take a breath before I speak. I would speak on the exhale. I would be really speak with a lot of expression. I realized that was a really good thing much later, to speak with a
Mm.
lot of expression
Mm-hmm.
and emphasize a word near the end of a phrase and go phrase to phrase to phrase. But when the pressure was on and it was a difficult situation, it all went out the window.
Mm.
As I will say, with any technique, because it was just a technique. I
Mm.
realized I had to make it me. I had to practice it so much in so many situations that this became automatic. That was hard. That was a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And not everyone's willing to put in that kind of work. I was because I was so
Mm-hmm.
desperate, driven by money. And so that's what I did. I
Mm-hmm.
made it me. I don't think about this at all. I
Mm-hmm.
am not understanding anything that I'm doing with you right now. There is no concentration on anything going on this. All
Yeah.
I'm trying to do is focus on you and how can I best convey what I want to say to you in the most effective way. There is no thought about stuttering. There's no thought about technique, no thought about anything I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
This is me. And
Mm-hmm.
that, my friends, is what you need to do. And it's just hard work. It's just work.
Mm.
There's no way around it. Everyone asks me, "Oh, what kind of tricks, tips, and techniques do you have?" I go, "I have none. None. This is hard work, and
Mm.
hardly anyone wants to do it because it is
Mm.
hard. But if there's one thing I want everyone to listen to, and no one will, there is joy in the work. There is
Oh, interesting.
unbelievable joy in making progress.
Yeah.
And there's incredible joy in testing yourself and seeing how far you can go. So there's a price to hard work,
Mm-hmm.
but there's incredible joy from the value of
Mm. Mm.
that. And people don't get to that point. They say, I'm just going to, love my stutter, embrace it, and all that. Or, yeah,
Mm.
but I, I have family responsibility. I, I had no sense that I could get to this place. I just wanted to be able to stutter a little less, feel more comfortable, be able to ask questions, build my business, talk
Yeah.
on the phone, maybe say my name so it doesn't take 15 seconds, which it
Mm-hmm.
literally would take me 15 seconds, if not more, to say my name. My speech was not these nice little repetitions. It was head shaking, lips pursed, all kinds of secondary behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was a mess.
Mm.
No one's going to give a mess, give $1 million to someone who's a mess. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care how brilliant I might be. Now,
Mm-hmm.
this was just hard work.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Who's
sounds
willing
like
to
there
do that?
was a lot of a lot of responses to stuttering that you developed over time that were really interfering with being an effective communicator and
Destructive behaviors, I call them.
destructive behaviors. Sure. Yeah. You're right. There's so many names for them, right? Avoidance and coping behaviors but destructive behaviors.
Whatever
Yeah.
it is,
Yeah.
whatever it
But,
is.
and it's like they seem to help as a quick fix in that moment, but they end up imprisoning you and then interfering with your communication in such big ways.
Exactly.
Um,
Yep.
yes. So actually, yes, the avoidances that did imprison you. Um, I was going to ask if you avoid now. Do you have any awareness of avoiding now? Some people, work on layers of releasing avoidances. Even what you're saying, some of the like embrace and love, you're stuttering. A lot of the people doing that are actually working on letting go of the destructive behaviors that you're saying to really get down to what the true stuttering actually is versus all of the responses, often fear driven, discomfort driven, to try to hide stuttering and just deal with it. It's really
Correct.
in a sense, it's a natural response to stuttering. Everybody develops just about many people develop the avoidance behaviors. But yes, are you aware of any avoidance that just goes on now for you?
None.
Yeah,
Honestly.
this is part of the
Honestly.
freedom.
I I am free. And the most interesting thing is that I realized how many, like you're saying, layers of veils I had put up between me and other people, and how
Mm,
many levels of avoidance I put up between me
mm,
and other people.
mm-hmm.
And this process, this 2 year process of very intense work,
Yeah. Tell us more about that
in
actually.
that, in that process, I changed, I grew, I became resilient, I became resourceful.
Mm,
I things I never had. People, wow, you're so disciplined. I never had any discipline. Wow, you're so resourceful. Nothing, nothing. This was all from growing in this 2 year process. And then, frankly, afterward, because even after I was able to say my name and I felt I was free, I was not quite free. I still had some difficulty in certain situations that I had to work through, like
mm,
speaking in little groups, speaking in real fast, or if like here's an easy example. I would take walks with my sister. I'd run into people because I've lived in the same community all my life. And so I'd
mm,
run into people and I'd have to introduce her. And I'd feel this hurriedness. And I realized, no, to do the opposite. Slow it
mm.
down, Oh, I would get real rigid. Oh, gotta do the opposite. Have fun speak. I mean, all these things, there's, as you say, layers upon layers upon layers.
Yeah.
And I frankly feel that I am the real me now. I am who I am. And,
Wow.
and that's a
Yeah.
wonderful feeling to
Yeah.
feel like you,
Yeah.
like to find the real me.
Because you
And
can express you. It's actually a little bit of a juxtaposition. I'm just going to interject here because some people would say, but you're the real you. And I know what you're saying because like you have this freedom and you've removed all these barriers. Yet it's interesting that it was learning a new way of speaking that did not feel like you with the phrasing and these different things that you wired into your brain that became you and then gave you the freedom to be the real you. And then you've acquired this new way of speaking, which back in the day when I was doing lots of fluency shaping type of stuff with people, combined with lots of avoidance reduction work and, combining a whole bunch of things,
yeah,
the people so this was just my opinion of what I saw. There were a lot of people that was not the solution for, but there was a percentage that it was. And they persisted in this is my new normal. I'm going to ingrain this and I will say, like, obsessively worked on it,
Mhm.
and whatever drove them and motivated them, or the successes that they saw a little bit that whet the appetite for more, that kept them going, they made that their way. And sometimes they had to review stuff and come back. We had refreshers as layers went off. But it sounds a little bit similar to your process, but a whole bunch of people fell to the side also. And so that's why you do have so many different ways of helping people who stutter, because that what happens for the rest of those people, which I saw as the majority, but we can't deny the people that diligently and obsessively worked on this and got to this place that you're at. There's people who've worked the other ways that will actually talk about having these levels of freedom that you're talking about too, and even lots of spontaneous fluency. And when you listen to them talk, some of them you can't even tell that they stutter. That, not that that's the point at all. It was
Right.
actually, they had to let go of striving for that. What I find interesting is, wow, how are you guys arriving here in different ways, right? So I can learn from that too, but not to throw the baby out with the bathwater in any which direction. I mean, that's my own thinking, because I'm working with so many different people, and not you know what I mean? So anyway, so I find great value in your story and your experiences, even in the climate of how stuttering therapy, the direction that it has gone in recently.
Mhm.
Your story is valid and powerful and important to be heard too, because it is not one way. What if you what if you can't embrace, right? And then people are only doing one aspect instead of, what does this person need? Where are
Yeah.
they at? But anyway, all right, I'm getting more into like
Yeah.
the speech therapy side, but
No, no. And I don't want to give the impression at all that
yeah.
just because I relearned to speak and made that automatic, made that me, that was got what got me through. If I
Yeah.
was trying to go from here to here, that
Yep.
may have gotten me maybe halfway,
Hmm.
maybe less. When I had to do then, and it hit me just over the head like a shovel, that I realized I was so psychologically messed up from 50 years of stuttering
Mm. Mm.
that I had to work through that stuff, doing the opposite. You know, that was my main thing. And there's a million doing the
Mm.
opposite. You know, and then even after that, I realized I had to work through one speaking situation after another, just in very small steps,
Yeah.
stacking one success after the other. And so I help people all over the world trying to do this. And they say, "Oh, I did it last week." And I said, "How many times?" "Oh, just at once." I said, "No, rapid succession over and over and over again. This is an everyday, all through the day thing."
Hmm.
And very few people are willing or even can generate that many speaking opportunities to
Hmm.
do that, to
Hmm.
literally change your brain, to change your expectation from "I'm always going to stutter," that was me,
Hmm. Hmm.
anticipating stutter, that was me,
Hmm.
to "wow, I can do this," and taking on these things that used to paralyze me. And in really small steps, though,
Hmm.
I found that I could work through them.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and if I had difficulty, rather than get all upset, I would laugh about it. Again, always
I
doing
love
the
that.
opposite.
Yeah.
I'd laugh about it, smile, and I would go
Mm.
back to the beginning of a phrase and do my extreme BEPs, take an even fuller breath, more expression, more emphasis, smaller phrases,
Mm.
and and if I worked through it and I felt good about it, I would say I won that phrase. I would just go back and I would win the phrase,
Hmm.
and then I would move on. Not many people are willing to do all that stuff, but so it
Hmm.
was relearning to speak. That got me part of the way. psychological stuff that can be part of the way. But where the rubber really meets the road is not going on a street corner and having a sign on that says "I stutter, talk to me." You
Mm.
know, not beginning at a super high level, beginning at the lowest possible level, talking with my wife,
Yeah.
talking with my kids, talking with friends in really easy situations,
Yeah.
while while
Hierarchy.
while using right in a hierarchy, while while building on my new speech, how I really need to speak, which I call breathe, emphasize, phrase, just because it's easy to remember.
Mm.
You know, which all I'm doing is I just simplified how public speakers speak. That's It's just an oversimplification so that I could remember. Um, and and then working through one situation after the other in rapid succession. I mean, not taking a break, just boom, 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 boom. All of a sudden, you begin to build confidence where there was no confidence whatsoever. And in anything that you do, any skill you're building, you do that. You may not
Mm.
realize it, but
Mm.
you do that.
Yeah.
If you have one repeated success, even if they seem insignificant, you're going to
Mm.
start building successes. You're going to start
Yeah.
building confidence. And
Yeah.
that's what I did.
Yes.
Not everyone's willing to do that. But for people who
Yeah.
do that, they find that they build confidence.
Yeah. Well, this is also why there's like a science to therapy and technique, and then there's the art of therapy, and the art of therapy is that figuring out, like, as a clinician, okay, what's going on with this person, what is holding them back, what do they need different to be able to, maybe there's a different thing that needs to be worked on. So yes, it can be, it's not always is this person willing, but it can be what is actually in the way and what do I need to do as the therapist to meet them there to help them with whatever is going on. But and this is, I mean, you're working with people who stutter, but let's also be clear that you're not a speech therapist, right? So you're
I'm not
not
a
a
therapist.
certified therapist,
I know
right?
nothing. I honestly,
You know
let us
your
be perfectly
experience.
clear that the only people who I will work with are people who have gone through speech therapy. They have been frustrated, whatever. They're desperate. I don't charge money for anything. I honestly know nothing about stuttering. I really don't. I'm not a therapist. I have no knowledge of anything. I just know what I did.
Yes,
And,
your experience,
and that
your
is
success,
all that
yeah.
I know. I
And
have
that's what you're
little,
offering to people too, right?
that is what
Is
I'm offering.
your actual experience, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's it. It's
And some
very
people have issue
small.
with this, right? They're like, wait a second, you're acting as a speech therapist, and da, da, da. So then that becomes, but
I tell
I
people
see
right
your
now, I am not a
heart.
therapist and I don't understand stutter.
Yes. Well, you understand your experience with stuttering. You do very
I only
well.
know my experience.
Yeah.
But
And you
there
have a
is
big
some leverage.
heart that you want to help other people, and you're able to even do something like that and offer that for free to just see, hey, does your experience, would it be of any help to another person? And I see your heart in that. But maybe some of your frustration with seeing some of their stuff too is they might need maybe not the old therapy that they did that wasn't helpful for them, but a therapist who has a bigger view and can understand that there are different pieces, there are psychological pieces, there are different approaches, and
Right.
one size doesn't always fit all. So if your size wasn't helpful, for them never to lose hope though, and to
Right.
shame themselves that, like, I'm not working hard enough. Well, what is getting in the way there? And so
Mhm.
anyway, so I just want to put that out there too, that we, yeah.
No, absolutely. I encourage people to go to therapy, especially, kids who are, people under 20. I, I, I say, I
Yeah,
am
you
not
don't
going
do
to work with anyone, you know, although
younger people.
well, um, young people, although I guess now I work with a guy who's 18. But
Mm.
but my view, my overall mantra with this all is there. there may not be a solution because there is no cure for this. There, there may not be a solution, but there's always a way forward. And
Hmm.
and I strongly suggest people go into traditional speech therapy, professional speech therapy, I should say, with a real
Hmm.
professional like yourself. And if that doesn't work out, I'm always here. Always have my phone. You can contact me anytime. My door is always open. All that.
Hmm.
But
All right, I have
what
another
I
question for you.
did, yeah, go ahead.
I have another question. So, I'm wondering, I'm wondering, I don't know, I have no idea where we're even at time-wise here. Okay. Um,
I'm yours.
if you had, uh, so if a person who stutters, or I don't know if you ever felt like you were inconveniencing people when you stuttered significantly in your past, and like, okay, so you don't relate to that because
I
I
was
do
so
have a,
focused on me.
yeah,
You know, I didn't feel I was inconveniencing anyone. I mean,
okay,
I was just trying to get through a word. I mean, I I, I didn't have time to think of anyone else. Frankly,
okay.
I was so over involved.
You didn't care what they thought of you. That wasn't part of
Oh,
your,
I cared. I
okay,
cared, sure. I cared, sure, but you know, I wasn't, thinking about their time schedule. I was I was so focused on trying to get a word out, trying to
yeah,
sound out. I
yep,
mean,
got it. You were focused there.
this was
Okay.
severe. Yeah. I mean, this wasn't, oh, gee, I'm thinking about the other person. I mean, and frankly, my starting was so severe that I would get into a block. And sometimes I would almost lose consciousness. I would forget what I'm talking about. I would forget what the conversation was about. My
Sure.
blocks lasted so long and were so, it was like a car crash over and over again.
Mm.
I,
Trauma.
I would forget what I was talking about. I forget
That's a trauma response. Yeah. It's interesting that you've come out of all of that through your, right? I mean, it seems like it from what you're saying. You
yeah.
don't seem to have, do you feel like you don't have residual trauma? You didn't directly do trauma work with anybody, right? You
No.
never worked with a psychologist or a psychotherapist or anything on
Well,
stuttering related stuff,
not related to my speech. It's related to how
okay.
messed up I was mentally. I mean,
Which
many,
was
many
related, but
therapists.
but that
Oh,
was related
just
to
life.
stuttering.
I was really struggling to get through life. Frankly, I'm amazed that I'm even alive. I mean, I,
Hmm.
I, I was severely depressed. I didn't know what I could do with my life. And,
Hmm.
I live in a pretty affluent world where people are really successful. My friends are really successful people for the most part.
Hmm.
And, uh, and I live in that world.
Hmm.
And, they're heads of companies. They're doctors. They're lawyers. They're inventors. They're entrepreneurs. They're not, and and here I am. I mean, I had no idea what I could possibly do with my stuff. I had no idea, and I
Hmm.
just gave up, and I just worked at things. I was underemployed terribly
Yeah.
in things that I felt wouldn't, make me talk much. But
Hmm.
as I rose up, because I was a really good writer, um,
Hmm.
I rose to a position where I had to talk, and I one day said, you know what, this is just what I do as part of the job. I'm just going to
Hmm.
talk,
Hmm.
and my speech improved somewhat.
Yeah.
But to really get through the real hard stuff, like difficult situations or saying my name or calling people on the phone who I didn't know, that was a lot of work. That was a lot of work, and I just went in little small steps. There was no
Yeah.
hero. It's just really small steps.
Did you
Not many people
ever,
are willing to do that.
did you self-disclose or tell people that you stutter or people called advertising? Was that ever a part of your
I was
process?
too embarrassed. No,
Okay. Even
I'm
in your
telling you, I was
2 year
a poster
period?
child for what not to do. Never, not once in my life.
Okay.
By the way, I couldn't even say
That's
the
okay.
word stutter.
Yeah.
I couldn't say the word. How am I
Okay.
going to possibly do that? The
Hmm.
only time I did
But
that,
part of your doing the opposite, that wasn't a part of it?
no, because by that time had improved my speech quite a bit. But
Okay.
but the only time that I ever self-disclosed, and by the way, it was so obvious I stuttered so heavily that it would almost be ridiculous to say that. So
Yes. There's other reasons for it, but okay, yes.
right, there are
I
other
hear I
reasons,
hear
but
what you're
it's a
saying.
brilliant thing to do. I I, I strongly suggest people do that. For me, it would just be like a joke. So so in this job that I was up for, um, after I took a job that was, I mean, I would have never taken a job like this. It was a writer's job for a, for a big company. It was a utility. And I would have never taken that, but I was just so desperate. We had one child, and I mean, we had to get money. I hadn't worked for years. I was in a terrible depression. I just took anything. And I
Hmm.
took this job, and it turned out to be great because I could hide, but I could get into some speaking situations, and I learned a job. And then I needed more money, and I was up for a job, and I fortunately the interview was just a few minutes of interview, and it was mostly just
Mm.
writing. So they, that the head of the company calls me up at 9:40 at night. I had heard of
Wow.
this guy. He was very well known in Chicago, and I go, "Oh my God, this guy's calling me at 9:40 at night," and he offers me a job for 50% more pay, a
Wow.
promise of a lot of upside, and um, and he said you're going to be speaking with, interfacing with CEOs and CFOs of publicly traded companies, and he's all excited. I go, I'm sorry, I can't do that. He said, why? I said, I said no to everything. Um, uh, and here I'm 37 years old. And I said, no, I can't do that. He said, why? He said, I said, well, and and I'm trying to come up with a word other than stuttering because I know I can't say that word. That would have taken me
Hmm.
minutes. So I have a problem speaking, something like that. He goes, I know that. And it'll get in the way in the start, but once they see your work, they're gonna like you. You'll see. And I said, nah. And he said, give it some thought overnight and call me in the morning. Oh my God, call me. I have to make a phone call.
Oh my gosh, you're like, stop.
Oh my God. But I decided the next morning, no one else was gonna hire me. It was perfect for what I wanted to do because I could
Mm.
write. I could
Hmm.
write. That I could do. If you can't talk, you have to, develop into a writer. So I did that.
Mm.
And by the way, I've written now 5 books, um,
Oh,
working on the sixth.
okay.
So, anyways, but
Wow.
so I decided, okay, I'm going to take it. Well, my income not only was 50% higher, which I effectively turned it down, and I said, oh, okay, I'm going to do it because no one else was going to hire. My income tripled within 3 or 4 years,
Wow.
tripled again. So I was making, 5 times what I made, you know,
Hmm.
4 years ago, just by willing to say yes to something.
You said yes.
Unfortunately, he almost forced me to say yes, but it's things like that. Every time I said yes in my life, good things happen. And every time I
Mm.
said no, which was my whole previous life, well, nothing good is going to come up.
Well,
So,
there's a word of wisdom.
I got a lot of wisdom.
There's been a lot in here,
It's in the
but
book, buddy. It's in the book. Free to
but
speak.
there's but that's a good piece right there. I really like that, saying yes, nodding your head yes, and the good that came from that and the bad that came from the no's, of course, considering each thing, but in general. Um, we're going to wrap it up here in a minute, but I was wondering what if you were able to tell your younger self anything, um, or something that maybe you wish you had known when you were a child around stuttering, or advice you would have given yourself then that you now know? Is there anything you would tell your younger self or you wish you had known then?
Wow, I would have a very long conversation. My dad,
Not
who
surprised.
my my dad, who
Oh.
claims that he stuttered when he was
Oh.
young, and then he kind of grew out of it. He always thought that I would grow out of it.
Uh-huh.
By the way, I never spoke until the age of 4.
Oh, late speaker. Yeah.
Late speaker,
That's
late
maybe
speaker.
a language different thing going on there, but okay.
Don't know.
Yep.
He always said, just get out there and talk. And that was great advice. I wish I had taken that advice, but that is
Uh,
great advice that I would give. Get out there and talk. A lot of my speech improvement before my 2 year journey was just getting out there more and talk. This was my jobs
mm,
forced me to do so. Just because being a father forced me to do so.
mm.
My kids wanted me to manage their little league teams. So I
Aw,
had to talk, you know.
nice. You said
Um,
yes.
and that I said yes to, with my
Mm,
kids. To that. So I would say yes. The other thing is that anyone can do is I now tell people two things in every conversation. One, enjoy, and two, give.
oh,
Enjoy and give every conversation.
love that.
So so in other words, enjoy, that's the opposite of stuttering essentially, especially
Dread.
for me where it was so hard for me to talk, to try and
Hmm.
enjoy anything. And I have found that I can enjoy any conversation, even a brutally difficult conversation, if I can handle it, if I can convey either empathy or if I can convey, you know, intelligence, whatever it is,
Okay.
I can enjoy that. I'm enjoying it right now. And then to give of yourself, focus on the other person rather than what all is going on here, because that's all I was doing. I was just so focused. Gee, can I get out a word or two? Just can I convey
Yeah.
a thought in a few words? So give, enjoy, get out there and talk.
Love it. Yes. Okay. Is there anything that we didn't cover here that
Oh
you'd
wow.
like to share? I mean, I know, of course, right? But something that's important to you that either about yourself or stuttering or messages to people who stutter or parents even of kids who stutter, anything that we missed that you feel is important that you would like to share before we end?
We didn't miss it, but I'll say it again that
Sure.
take those first steps and whatever those might be to you, and work hard and once you notice just a little bit of progress, celebrate it.
Hmm.
Celebrate that a little bit of progress and build on it. Don't let it sit there. Build on it, rapid succession, over and over again, and just have fun speaking and make it an adventure. I kind of came to the thought that my stuttering and whatever challenges I have, and there are many that came with me, those are little calls to action that I always use them as things to avoid. And now, having gone through my crazy experience, I look at them as calls to action. These are ways for me to improve myself, to be
Hmm.
better than I ever was, to not avoid them, but to take action on them. And those have been the greatest experiences of my life. That's what I'd like to say.
Wonderful. Thank you for your time, your very open sharing of your life, a very personal, kind of vulnerable area, for the benefit of whoever listens to this and others who stutter.
And it's all in here. I mean, this has everything. This is like a tell-all book. And
Yes.
the interesting thing is that people tell me, wow, that's my life. I go, yeah,
Yeah.
we're all living the same life. I help people in Africa, in China, in all these
Wow.
crazy places, and we've all lived the same life. Our stuttering might be different, but we've had the same experiences. And um, again, those I feel are calls to action.
Like opportunities.
They're opportunities. And what I always felt I was cursed. I thought I was terribly cursed. My older brother was so charming. He was a brilliant speaker, able to work any crowd, all that stuff. And here I am, I could barely say a word. And I always felt I was cursed. I didn't see that it could really be a gift, that it could really be an opportunity. And now I see it. And it's been the greatest gift that I ever had. So thank you for having me on. You're a gift too.
Aw. Yes, I'm going to end it on that. What a beautiful note that it actually became a gift. Thank you, Larry.